class. Welcome to a discussion of the experience of work in young adulthood. So first of all, I want you to be very aware that young adults are going to change their expectations about their career at least once. We had seen in the emerging adulthood chapter that a lot of people experience job changes as many as 7 times in their 20s. It's very common to change your major, to change your career, to not work in the field that you studied in. Okay. I'm a prime example of that. My undergraduate degree is in advertising. And of course, I've gotten degrees beyond that, a degree beyond that, and graduate work in psychology. So I'm a classic example of this. So let's talk about some of the reasons why people change their expectations and change their career plan. The number one reason why young adults change is because of academic ability. Many of you are taking the anatomy and physiology class right now, or you will very soon. And that class, of course, is known as a weed out class. It is there to teach you a bunch of information, and it's also there to weed out the students who don't quite have the academic chops to make it. And so if you find yourself in that boat, that's good feedback, and that will help you to get where you need to be faster, get you to a career that is going to be challenging and wonderful for you, where you will succeed and make a difference in the world. Another reason why young adults change their career expectations is simply because their interests have changed. You thought, my college roommate thought organic chemistry was going to be her gig. She took organic chemistry freshman year, hated it, and decided to move on to something else, and has been successful in the business world ever since. Sometimes our job or the career path we've chosen is not a good fit with our values. And I can speak to this personally. This is a very important one to me. So the reason I don't work still in advertising and marketing is because I did it for 5 years after getting a degree in advertising, and I was miserable the entire time. And I don't mean to say that everybody will be miserable. I just mean that it was not a good fit for me and my values. There was a lot of immorality in the world of business. I won't go into the details, but I was in some appalling situations, and I didn't want to be in that kind of situation. I'm a person who wants to help people. I'm a person who needs work to be meaningful. And my last job in marketing, I was working on Chef Boyardee, and that was my product. And I was spending 60 hours a week trying to get people to eat more Chef Boyardee. And I was miserable because to me, that was a meaningless existence. So this job where I feel like I'm helping people to live better lives is a better fit for my values. Nobody really talks to young people about this. And I think it's really, really a pity. I maybe could have saved myself a lot of time and heartache had I considered my values and my value system before embarking on a career in marketing. Now, I really want to be really clear. You can work in marketing and not have this issue, okay? This was specific to me and the places that I worked. I don't think it's necessarily a conflict for everybody. But think about your values and how that's going to fit with your chosen career. Again, fit. We talked about Holland. Sometimes it's just not a good fit with our personality, and we realize that, and we say, uh-oh, I need to do something else. Sometimes we don't have enough education to do what we wanted to do. So maybe you want to be a teacher, but you didn't get a certification. And then sometimes we find that we don't have enough skills. And so we have to shift our expectations about how our career is going to go. That makes me think of something. My son is almost 15 and is thinking about what career he's going to have. And I said to him the other day, I said, you're absolutely smart enough to do just about anything you want. And he said, so I could be president? And I said, you're smart enough to be president, but you're not charismatic enough to be president. You're not outgoing enough or charismatic enough. He's just not. It's not going to happen. So sometimes we don't have a skill like that. Okay. I want you to understand this concept of reality shock. Reality shock is where you've gone through your schooling and you think you're doing well and you're learning what you need to learn. And then you get into the workplace and it's like, it's this big monster that you had no idea was out there. Everything is different from what you thought was going to happen. That happened to me as well. Had my degree in hand in advertising and started working in marketing and was stunned. Nothing I had learned in my classes was relevant. Nothing, not a single thing. And it was just trial by fire. Here, jump into the deep end and do this job. And I had no training for it whatsoever. So that's reality shock, where the training that you've gotten doesn't really prepare you for the real world. I want to say one more thing about this. Sometimes the reality shock has to do with young people thinking that they're going to have more responsibility, be more in charge, more creativity, more freedom than they really have when they get that first low-level job. The first jobs are low level. You do the grunt work. And if they want you to take out the trash, then that's what you do. You don't get the corner office right away. So just be aware of that. I want you to understand, too, this concept of alienation. Alienation frequently happens at work. I'll bet a lot of you have felt alienated at your work. It tends to happen in these sort of lower level jobs where you feel like your work is meaningless, like you aren't valued, you have no connection to your work or your workplace or the end product. I'll bet a lot of you have felt that way, like you're just a widget. And if you were gone tomorrow, no one would care. To reduce alienation, companies can make sure that there is trust between the employer and the employee. Employees can be invited to help in decision making. Employees can be given flexible schedules and be given training to help them further their career. And when those things happen, we tend to feel more connected to our workplace. Burnout is our next idea. Burnout is something that you guys are going to probably have to consider for yourselves because so many of you want to go into healthcare. And burnout is something that frequently happens to people who are in helping professions. So first responders, police officers, nurses, social workers, psychologists, counselors, teachers. These are the kinds of people who are very prone to burnout, where they feel like they have been exploited or are being exploited. They've lost their motivation. All the idealism that they had when they first started seems to be gone. I know a lot of teachers who feel that way. The STAR test has changed education so that we are no longer teaching children to love learning, but they are learning to take a test. I've seen this with my daughter. She, like I said, in a previous video, she just spent about an hour this morning working more on identifying something like 20 different phyla from a particular genus of insect. I think it was. I'm not quite sure. She loves that. She's learning for learning's sake, and she has expressed that she's not too disappointed about being home right now. She tends to like school a lot, but school at this point was basically going to be reviewing for STAR, and that's not a lot of fun. So teachers tend to lose their motivation and idealism. Another aspect of burnout is just simply being absolutely exhausted, physically, mentally, and emotionally. You're exhausted. You're depleted. You just don't have anything left to give to this thing anymore. So that's the idea of burnout. Passion. There are two types of passion I want you to be aware of. One is obsessive passion and one is harmonious passion. And I would hope that we would all end up in harmonious passion, but be cautious and worried about obsessive passion. Don't let yourself get there. I've had this before. I had a health issue right after my son was born, a pretty serious health issue. Was quite sick for a few years. Thought I might not be able to go back to work again. And I discovered that there was dietary therapy for this. And it wasn't very well known. And in fact, a lot of doctors would kind of discourage it. But I discovered it and I followed it very, very carefully to the letter. And within 6 months, my illness was gone. And I have been fine ever since. And I became pretty obsessive about that. I created a website and I blogged and I posted recipes and I created social media pages for it. I partnered up with a friend who then taught fitness classes while I taught the nutrition classes. And I talked about this all the time. And I would talk about it sometimes when it was inappropriate to talk about it. And I remember one time I had brought it up, sort of this nutrition thing. And I heard a friend of mine behind me whisper, "There she goes, beating that drum again." And I thought, ooh, ouch. Something's off here. I'm irritating my friend so badly that she's whispering when she has to know I heard that. So I took the point. I took the message home and I chilled out and let that go. I think I have harmonious passion now for psychology. I spend free time reading about psychology, listening to podcasts about psychology. If anybody wants to talk about it, I'm game. But I don't think I talk about it so much that a friend is going to whisper behind me, "There she goes, beating that drum again." So I wish for all of you that you will find harmonious passion in your work and avoid the trap of obsessive passion. Last thing for this little mini lecture on the experience of work is, why do people leave their jobs? Sometimes they're just unhappy with the work. It wasn't what they wanted. Maybe they find that they're with people too much or not with people enough. They want to be out and about in the world and not cooped up in an office. Maybe they don't like numbers as much as they thought they did. Maybe they don't like working with people. There's just a lot of reasons why. Maybe it just feels meaningless to them. Maybe their skills have become obsolete. You know, you get to be 50 or 60 and the world changes. There's when I was graduating from with my master's degree, I knew I wanted to teach community college. I knew I didn't want to go to a university. I really love the community college environment. And I had a master's degree, and I did a year in my PhD, but then was expecting and had my child and decided I didn't want to put him in childcare for 4 years while I finished the PhD. And I thought to myself, that's no problem, because a master's is all you need at community college level. Well, now, some 20 years later, it's starting to be a trend that they're more and more looking for a PhD. Will my skills become obsolete? Boy, I hope not. Really hope not, but it can happen. It's something to guard against. And so continually working on your skills is always a good idea. Economic trends, you guys have seen this. Manufacturing has gone down, had gone down. It's coming back again. And I think that coronavirus is going to cause a lot of manufacturing to come back again as well, once the economy can go back to work. Sometimes we leave our job because we want more education. So we take a couple of years off to go get that PhD or that master's degree or an MBA. And then sometimes we leave for caregiving. So I did that, wanted to take care of my kids until they went off to kindergarten. So was home with them for 8 years. And we will see in one of the next lectures, I think it's the next little mini lecture, that can sometimes impact a woman's pay if she decides to take time off for caregiving. Of course, caregiving might be for your own children, or it might be for an elderly relative as well. So keep that in mind. So that's experience of work. Thanks for listening.